Kool-Aid, you
Yes,
really
sir.
wanted to talk about the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, and we
got
listed
to.
several players from Brian Branch, Aleem McNeil,
Carlton Davis. Terry and Arnold.
All
of them.
Yeah, you
Josh
can
Pascal.
James Houston
Pascal
deserves some love.
I mean, let's start with the run defense because I think that set the tone for the entire game. When you
Yeah.
can hold Joe Mixon to 1.8
He was
yards
frustrated.
per carry.
Mm-hmm.
He was frustrated, but do you know, like, people were pissed at Mixon and were coming at him. Oh, why is he doing that? They're winning and stuff. But he knew. That's why Joe Mixon knew we cannot keep kicking field goals
He can feel the
against
water
this team.
was starting to creep up and get higher.
He knew in that moment, like, we're squandering opportunities to put this team away.
Yeah.
And when you don't put away a Dan Campbell Detroit Lions team when you have the opportunity, you are just asking for retribution.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a great point.
No, that's a fact. Because the run defense for this Lions team is literally what kept them in this ball game. Not only did they open the game with a solid run defense against Joe Mixon, but as the Lions were climbing back in the second half, and in particular the fourth quarter, the Texans were in a situation to where they couldn't run the football. And when you can't run the football and you have a 2-score lead in games, that does not bode well, man. Like, the fact that you had to rely on C.J. Stroud to go out there and try to make plays either out of the pocket or, holding on to the ball too long, and that's where you start to see the mistakes. That's where you start to see the sacks pile up. That's where you start to see the pass rush get home. And it's just so tough when you can't run the football the whole game. I mean, like I said, from start to finish, that run defense was there the whole entire night. Aleem McNeil stepped up, man. You love to see it. DJ Reader was great. Josh Pascal, man, in the pass rush in the second half, he was integral. You got to give it up to James Houston, man.
Yep.
We got a James Houston sighting
Houston's
last
back,
night.
baby.
I mean, it just when the guy is on the field and he's making plays, you got to give him credit, man. So, I mean, everybody stepped up on this defense, and they were literally the only reason why you stayed in this game.
Yep.
The only reason.
Hey,
Yeah,
holding them to field goals was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Joe Mixon on the game, 25 carries, 46 yards, 1.8 average.
He held
and his
him under
longest
50
run,
yards.
Yeah, after that first half, too.
Yeah.
His longest run was 8 yards on the day. And to me, that shows great improvement. I thought that they were going to have to get us Darius Smith back for us to be able to see that type of improvement because they had gotten gashed a couple times before by the running backs. In this game, no big runs at all. They locked everything down, which gave them the opportunity to turn C.J. Stroud into a one-dimensional quarterback. Then that means that now you get the opportunity to put more hits. You get the opportunity to have more sacks.
4 sacks, 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud
Beautiful.
is known as a guy that doesn't turn over the ball. I mean, we saw 7 interceptions last night.
Yep.
7.
Yep.
Crazy.
That's especially for 2 quarterbacks that are known for taking care of the football and not making those types of decisions. But that's where the defense, I mean, it canceled each other out a little bit. Goff threw 5, they threw 2. So in theory, there's only 3 differential. Kind of like the outkicker coverage thing.
Right,
Yep.
right.
So, I just don't know how you're the Houston Texans, what it felt like to be dominating this game and then constantly looking up like, wait a minute, if we trip up a little bit, they on our ass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, they were literally like Halloween.
But I think that
they just kept
there's a way.
marching slowly till they killed you at the end.
But I think that there's a way that when we saw the Lions get up on their big lead over the Titans, we knew it's because the Lions were clearly the better team. But in this one,
Yeah.
I didn't get the sense that the Lions were being dominated. I got the sense they were shooting themselves in the foot, and they couldn't get out of their own way. And those were things I was tweeting, like, they're hurting themselves right now.
Yeah.
And as soon as they got out of their own way, because the defense was on one the entire game, as soon as the offense got out of its own way, we saw the tide change. And I have to believe, just as our players knew, don't lose confidence and faith. We know what the deal is. I have to believe that the Houston Texans knew it as well. And that's why we see Joe Mixon acting the way that he's acting.
He
because
knew.
you realize, a whole half. If you don't put up 30 points, I'm sorry, that's not enough.
Yeah.
That is not enough for this Detroit Lions team that's gone out in halves and had perfect halves. Think about that. That's the thing that I love about this. It's like, hey, okay, Jared Goff has gotten off to a bad start. But what this team has consistently shown that they can do is overcome.
Yeah.
Well, imagine the pressure that the opponents of the Lions must feel, right? Because they know they have to play a perfect game.
Mm-hmm.
And they know the Lions don't have to play a perfect game.
Yeah.
Not at
And
all.
when you're putting that pressure on yourself, it creates opportunities for the Lions to cash in on it. It creates opportunities. And really, the defense yesterday, we could get a lot to the secondary, but
Yeah, we'll touch on the
C.J.
secondary.
Stroud holding on to
Yeah.
that football and taking some of those sacks were just so egregious.
Yeah.
Like there's
But
no
that's-
way.
it's
There's
part of
no
the
way they
development.
should have been sacks. Honestly, like Aleem McNeil should not have been a sack.
That's a
James
fact.
Houston should not have. You cannot let a James Houston track you from 10 yards away
Yeah.
and get sacked. You have to see that coming. But it's crazy to me that that's how it worked out yesterday.
But this is why we forget that as amazing as C.J. Stroud is and has been, he's still only a second-year quarterback, and you saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
It's part of the development. You saw some young quarterback-type mistakes. Like you said, holding on to the ball entirely too long with a man bearing down right in front of you.
Like you
throw the
saw.
ball away.
Yeah.
Or take off with your legs. You're a pretty good runner as well.
But
That's why-
AG changed things, though. There came a point in the time in the game where there was less blitzing and more relying on your front four.
Yeah.
And that's
but
what
they
I was
were
gonna say.
getting home. That's the difference. You
They
were
were.
winning one-on-ones.
But-
And I'm going to run down some stats, but go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is I believe that this is a testament to just how good the cornerbacks were. I get it. People focus on when they hear a cornerback's name called because it's generally in a bad play.
Yeah.
But you got to think about this. We're wondering, how is C.J. Stroud getting tracked down after 10 seconds? And I do believe that those cornerbacks in that secondary play, they do deserve some credit.
Oh, yeah.
And the linebackers and how they changed how they were going to contain. I remember at one point in time, the broadcast broke it down. Like they were now doing a different style of containment on C.J. Stroud that was
Yeah.
boxing him in a way that maybe was making him uncomfortable. I don't know how many other teams have employed this against him, but it was interesting that the broadcast made mention of exactly what AG was doing
Yeah.
with effectively his front seven.
No, that's a fact, man. And I want to run down some of these stats for the front four, really the front seven, man. Because Jack Campbell, second on the team in tackles with 7 total tackles in a pass defense. Jack Campbell has been everything you can ask for, man. He leads this team in tackles. He continues to go out there and make plays, man. Aleem McNeil, you had a sack and 2 TFLs. Josh Pascal, you had a sack and 2 TFLs, man. Hold on, still going down the list. Pat O'Connor, shout out Pat O'Connor, man. He came in and gave you 2
Good Irish
TFLs and a
boy.
sack. Man, just amazing, man. Trevor Nowalski was out there making some plays as well, but James Houston with a TFL in the sack. So, like I said, you needed some guys that you don't normally rely on to step up, and that was Pat O'Connor and that was James Houston last night. And every play was integral. When you're in a game of that caliber where any one mistake could really cost you down the road, they stepped up and performed, man. And the lack of a pass rush. I know we talk about Zadarius Smith. We would really have liked to see him last night because maybe he would have made the difference sooner in this game.
He made
But-
a difference. He was cheering his
No,
ass off.
and that's a
Like,
fact. That's a fact.
He lifted all of our spirits.
And the shot that I love most, man, it was like approaching the end of the third quarter. They flashed over to the sideline. Terrell Williams, he's coaching up the defensive line, and who's right next to him, man?
Yep.
It's Z, man. And he was damn near like a coach himself, man. I heard he went over and talked to Jake Bates before the kick. He is absolutely, and this is why when Brad Holmes does something, we have to just respect it. He knows what this culture means to this team. It isn't just a word. It isn't just a feeling. Like, it is a way of life for this team to operate. And he went and got a guy that fit that culture. Now, is he the most, a star-studded player? No, not at this point in his career, but
Well, it
he
doesn't
fits.
matter.
But exactly.
Look,
he
you just
fits,
listed O'Connor, Nowalski. Like,
Exactly.
they're not stars.
Yeah.
it fits
exactly.
what he wants to do with this team. And he has a plan, and he executes every single time. I can't wait to see what Z is going to bring to this team next week. But you had the guys step up when you needed to.
And that's why I wanted to be able to make mention of what Aaron Glenn, some of the changes defensively that were made, is that it seemed like the team played in the second half more like we got edge rushers. And in the first half, it seemed as if they were playing as if we need to get pressure by creating certain type of blitz is coming from either the second or the third layer of the defense. In the second
they were
half,
put in some weird positions, though, in the first half, right? I mean, it was kind of panic mode, quick change, lots of turnovers, stuff like that. You're trying to force some action. You realize the team is losing it. So maybe that's part of the reason they were going a little bit different in the first half than the second half.
Yeah.
Once you start to get your own turnovers, start to control the game a little more.
Yeah.
I was just so impressed how when the Texans needed big play, they just couldn't get it done.
But in previous weeks, we did see the Lions employ more blitzing getting more pressure on the quarterback from like the secondary as well.
Yeah, that's because you had to.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They looked like that in the first half against the Texans. In the second half, it looked more like the defense that we're going to see them play when Zadarius Smith is there. It was almost they were like, you know what? Let's rely on Pascal that he's here, rather than believing we have to manufacture the pressure from the secondary. And that's what encourages me even more. Now you're going to add a Zadarius Smith to this. And it was interesting because the one thing I wanted to be able to focus on for this game in particular was QB hits. And by the eye test, I thought Jared Goff got hit more times than C.J. Stroud. But in reality, the Lions got 7 quarterback hits in that game.
Beautiful.
To the Texans 5. And those
I wonder
things,
when they accumulated those,
man.
though. It seemed like that those came in the third and fourth quarter.
In the second half.
Yeah.
The second half,
second
definitely. There was no pass rush in that first half.
No.
Like virtually none. And that's why C.J. Stroud literally was the only person tearing this team apart, because Joe Mixon, I think, had 12 rushing yards at the half. Like, it was all C.J. Stroud in that first half.
He had a touchdown.
Well, yeah, but at the goal line, I mean, it is what it is. But C.J. Stroud was the reason you were losing this game in that first half.
Yeah, and just to add on to those stats, because you called out the tackles, you called out the tackles for loss, the passes deflected as well is awesome across the board. But the QB hits, all the players that have those, in addition to getting a sack or getting these tackles, Brian Branch had one, Aleem McNeil, Josh Pascal, Pat O'Connor had one, James Houston had one. So 1 tackle, 1 sack, but he also had a QB hit.
That's great.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, Pat O'Connor. What did he have? He had the 1 sack,
2 TFLs in a sack.
but he also had another quarterback hit as well.
That's beautiful.
That's what I'm saying. It's like these guys down the list were just getting after it. Levi Onwuzurike.
Hey, shout out Levi.
He had a quarterback hit as well.
Yeah.
These things, we saw it work out for Michigan. We've seen it work for the Lions. They beat these quarterbacks up throughout the game, and by the end of it, you're seeing quarterbacks just a little bit off. Sailing passes, scared, hearing footsteps. Aaron Glenn got people running from ghosts. That's what it is. This defense is something different.
It is.
If people don't realize by now, this defense has had several Defensive Player of the Year candidates on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
And they're a top 5 scoring defense as well. They're a top 10 in all defensive
top
metrics.
Top 5 red zone defense.
Like, we got to be real about this defense. And I know before the season we were kind of like, there's no way. Like, if they're just top 15, that's good enough. There's no way they can really scrape top 10. But we are seeing it, man. And they've done it without Aiden Hutchinson, which is the absolute crazy part about it.
That's the thing. I'm sitting over here just thinking what this team would look like if they still had Aiden bringing that pressure.
Man, stop it.
And if they would have gone out, I still think they probably would have gone out and gotten Zadarius Smith, even if Aiden was here. And then,
but
then you got your bookends.
Hey, listen.
Then you got your bookends.
We got next year to worry about that, because that's kind of what you're looking at next year. You're looking at Aiden, you're looking at Aleem, you're looking at Reeder, and you're looking at Zadarius Smith. There's your
That
front
is
four.
nasty.
That is dirty.
Like, arguably best D-line in the league.
Yeah,
arguably.
so that's next year, though. But there's a lot of unfinished business to go this year.